Hi everyone, this is Ellie Mae with Silhouette Secrets Plus, and today I am going to bring you a video that is almost a step-by-step. I'm often asked about step-by-step videos on all of my tutorials. I have very extensive tutorials written on my blog at SilhouetteSecrets.com, and it takes a lot of time to write up those tutorials for most projects. So I spend several days usually writing up the tutorials, and then I'm often asked if I have a step-by-step video to show the entire project. Sometimes that's doable and sometimes it's not. So I'm bringing you a step-by-step video, except that it's a time lapse, and it is recorded at 4 times. So the actual video is roughly about 30 minutes time frame, but most of it is filmed in the time lapse at 4 times. So it actually took 4 times that amount of time to complete the project. That is not including the time in the project for it to dry, for all the paint to dry, for the glue to dry, and for different things like that. So I wanted to give you a brief overview because I'm always asked about the projects. I woke up one morning with this idea in my head, and I just set up the cameras to record the entire process. Every single time I started painting, I would have to start the camera. So I've kind of taken that, I have put it in picture, so you can see the full work area that I'm in as we're working, what we're doing. You'll see my family come in and out, the cats come in and out. So I wanted to give you a brief introduction into what you're going to see next. Now the whole video is about 30 minutes, and I'm going to try to do some commentary to explain some of the things that we're doing. I did have music playing in the background, so I have to take that out for copyright reasons. So, when you're doing a project, turn on some music, have a little bit of fun. And this is meant to hopefully inspire you, but also to give you an inside look at what is behind Silhouette Secrets Studio when I'm creating a project. Now, I created this project out of an idea that I just got, one night, and decided I wanted to do it. So it's really just as simple as that. I take something that I think might work and I test it out. It doesn't always work out as planned. But this one turned out really great, and for some reason I'm really drawn to these Magnolia flower designs. As you'll see, I also have it in my on my shirt today. It's the same design I used in the project behind me, which is what you're going to see today. Now, if you still are with me, I want you to also make sure where you can find me. So make sure to like and subscribe to this YouTube channel for Silhouette Secrets Plus. That always helps. Click the little bell to be notified whenever I do a new YouTube video. I do try to put out some on a regular basis, but it just depends on what's going on in the studio each day, and I just never know how that's going to turn out. So like I said, it takes me a couple days at least to write, sometimes weeks when you're testing new products and new techniques, to write a step-by-step tutorial. So it can just vary week by week in how things are going to go. So make sure to follow me on SilhouetteSecrets.com, as well as on Facebook at Silhouette Secrets with Ellie Mae. Now let's get into the video portion of this. Okay, so I'm going to try and do this commentary as the video is going. As you can see on the screen, it is recorded at a time lapse of 4 times. So I look very funny, shaking my head, nodding my head. You're going to see, I think we look like penguins as we're walking around because we're in that time lapse. But I did have to charge my camera before we started, so I already have some of the design process in order on my screen. This is what you're seeing here. I have created the designs. That's what I'm working on in Silhouette Studio. So I am creating a design in Silhouette Studio. There's my son. He is a master builder with Legos. He can build just about anything. No recipe needed. I need the instructions, but he's showing this. This is just a typical Sunday in our house when I'm creating. We have, it's a family space, it's a family room that we're setting up as a maker space. So that is what you're seeing here in this video. When I am waiting for the Glowforge to turn on and recognize and the camera to focus or when I'm waiting for the Glowforge to process the time that it's going to take, I will pop over to Facebook, which is what you're seeing on the screen now. I am on Facebook answering questions on my Facebook group at Silhouette Secrets Plus with Ellie Mae, and I will switch back and forth between grabbing information from the blog or relevant information to answer the questions. So you're seeing me go to my blog to share information to answer a question. I do this pretty much all day long. A lot of times I will be answering Facebook questions from my phone. That's probably the majority because I usually have that with me anywhere I go. Sometimes I get lost down the rabbit hole and I end up answering Facebook questions and the Glowforge is sitting there ready for me to use. So it's just, as you can see, I switched back over. That is the Glowforge software that is showing up on the screen now. So this is the first design that I will be sending to my Glowforge. I do have a class on using Silhouette Studio for Glowforge users to get started in creating your own designs. I will throw a link up in the description below to that. There is one of our helpers that just walked across the screen really fast. Midnight is his name, and then here comes my husband. He also shares the space with me. We work together. We are currently launching a new Facebook page, social media, I guess I will just say that, social media page for Swift Creek Customs, and you can find that on Facebook, Instagram, and also YouTube eventually. We're working on some content for that, but we are both makers. You just saw my daughter in there. She was cleaning up after her recent game night. And what you're between the camera and myself, currently I'm standing at the Glowforge because you have to should be within arm's reach when it is running. It is vented out the window. So it is a little bit of a distance from my computer. But we have work tables on the right hand side, which you'll see me working at here in a little bit. And then we also have a big table in the center that works as both a workspace and gaming. So coming up soon, you're going to see my husband come back in and he is going to rearrange this table and set it up for a game that he's going to be playing. So our family is very active, very all maker oriented. So we're designing the Swift Creek Customs so we can kind of show all of that, not just silhouette. Here, I did do this one, a few sections in the video that are real time. And so you're watching real time Glowforge action. It is cutting it, and it's cutting it out of a plywood that I got from Woodpecker Crafts. I have masked that plywood, and it's cutting that first design. I really am fascinated by how the machine works and what you can create with it. I've just really it's only been a couple weeks that I've had the Glowforge, but once you have the knowledge in Silhouette Studio to be able to create your designs, the more comfortable you are with Silhouette Studio, that is going to be more helpful. The Glowforge really isn't that difficult to use. The main part of it is creating those designs and knowing how they would work within that Glowforge app. I do cover that in my beginner's class, which is linked below. It's a really neat way that you can just make creations come to life. So here's the finished project. I have the backing board on the left, and then I had a frame and the design in the center. At this point, when I went to pull it out of the Glowforge, I kind of kicked myself that I didn't have it set up to record pulling it out. It was really satisfying to pull that piece out of the center where the flower was. So in the second round that you'll see when I cut the second design, I did set up a ability to record that so you can see it. It's one of those things, I'm not used to recording every single step of my movements, so I didn't even think about it at the time. So I'm just pulling everything out of the Glowforge and have it all assembled. Then I realized that I didn't have another piece of wood that was ready to go for the second design. So what you're seeing me doing now is I've pulled out a piece of plywood and I have my transfer tape, my mask that I'm going to apply. So this is we have this, it's a kitchen table that we have had for 25 years. And then my husband built a plywood top for it so he could use it for his gaming that he does, which is larger than the actual kitchen table. So, but it's a plywood, so it doesn't look pretty, but it sure is functional, and we can use a craft knife or a razor knife directly on it and not have to worry about anything harming it. So that's what I'm doing here, is I'm masking that second piece. And when you mask your wood or your materials, it is designed so that you have less charred areas on your materials when the Glowforge cuts. Again, I'm a fairly new user to the Glowforge, so that's what I have picked up off the Glowforge sites. I am a Silhouette instructor, so I teach Silhouette for the Glowforge, but I do not teach the Glowforge specifically. So I'm learning as I go, asking questions along the way. But like I said before, it is really not difficult to use the Glowforge if you have Silhouette Studio knowledge to create those designs, or if you're using another design program. Here, my youngest comes into the room, then I tell her that she's on camera. She does a little dance, and like I said, it kind of feels like we're penguins when I watch the video. As we're walking in, it's the 4 times. So I've set it up in the Glowforge again. Then the Glowforge will recalculate. It has a camera inside of it, so it takes a little bit of time for it to scan that, but it tells you the exact location of your materials, which I find amazing. It's awesome. One of the reasons that I like the Silhouette Curio is it does something similar where it always resets to the exact location. So having this ability on the Glowforge is great. Being able to maximize the space where I'm cutting. Here's what I'm cutting on the Glowforge app. And then I've put that down in the picture-in-picture as I'm waiting on Glowforge. I have random things placed on my desk. I had a wood board. I pick it up. I think about what I could use it for. Can I cut this? Can I engrave this on the Glowforge? That is exactly what you're seeing. My day is, made up of those moments. If a squirrel runs by, then I sometimes chase that, or I get into answering questions on Facebook. So what you're seeing now is I decided, I kicked myself after the first design and not having it recorded so when I could pick that up. So I grabbed another one of my tripods and then I set it up to record. Again, my mind is in creation mode, and so having to record every single step of the way is not always my first thought. And my husband and I have discussed this in the discussion of our launching Swift Creek Customs, and that is, we should record more of what our process is, but we just do not think like that all the time. We are both makers. We get a creative idea. We just want to run with it. So as I said before, now you see my husband, we're all waddling around like penguins because we're at 4 times the speed. So he is picking up his gaming table from my daughter's game the night before. And what you're going to see, if you can see it in the picture-in-picture that I've put up, is while the Glowforge is running, he is tearing down that table, putting out a new mat on the table for his games, and then he's going to set it up. So you're going to see that kind of in the background. But I wanted you to see the design that I am doing, the second design on the Glowforge itself. And it is real time, but I did cut out a piece there so you're not having to watch the whole thing. These really didn't take too long to cut. The Glowforge itself actually has a timer. It gives you an estimated time for your project, but it's on my computer, so which you can see is clear across the room. So I just stand there and I'll answer questions on Facebook while I'm waiting and watching the machine. I do have a fire extinguisher close by at hand just in case. You always want to take all your safety precautions with your laser machine or any machine that you're using. Be mindful of that safety. Little about what you're seeing in the top picture-in-picture. is he's setting up his gaming table. So he does all kinds of tabletop gaming. A lot of what is on the table, which you really can't see, but it's buildings and different things like that, terrain. And a lot of it is things he has created or he has put together. Some of it is custom buildings that he has ordered, which were cut on a laser cutter. And one of the reasons that he was excited about us getting a laser machine is that he can now use it to create his own terrain or buildings to put together. This past weekend we actually filmed, and it'll be up on the YouTube and my Facebook page as well, but I actually gave him his first silhouette lesson and first Glowforge lesson all in one. He had designed a laptop stand that he wanted to create, and he drew out the plan. I told him it was not a beginner lesson, but we did manage through it, and he did a great job, which I knew he would do. It is a lot of repetitive motions between using different tools in the Silhouette Studio software. I do think that anybody can learn the Silhouette Studio software, and it just takes time to do that. So this is the part that the first time around I kicked myself for not recording. So I have my backing board, my frame, and here is the satisfying part. And I wish there was a way I could save that. I tried to think about it afterwards, but this design is a lot of intricate pieces. So there just really wasn't a way. Some of those fall down through the crumb tray when you're working with the Glowforge. They were really, really delicate. I actually scaled this design down from the original size it opened at, and I probably could not have gone any smaller. As you'll kind of see here when I get into unmasking and painting or the rest of the process, you'll see that it's pretty delicate, and some areas were very fragile. This is not a design that when cut could hold up by itself the size that I cut it at on the plywood, because it was just very fragile pieces in some of the areas. It's a great design, and what you're seeing now is I have to reposition the tripod in order to get it to do an overhead shot. I will admit this is something that I've always struggled with, is trying to get overheads of a project. So it took me a little bit of time in order to get that ready to go. And this is one of those reasons, you know, when I am in a creative zone or have that creative energy, trying to set up all the video recording and remember to press play and to test your microphone and do all that kind of stuff, that kind of takes out your, burst your balloon, I guess you could say. You don't always feel creative after that. And you have to check to see that you're in camera, and when you're doing the overhead shots, that may require that you stand on a chair if you're short. Really, I'm not that short. I'm 5'7", so you know, you can kind of get an idea of how tall the whole setup is. I had to make sure that the tripod didn't tip over, which I've had happen in my videos when I'm recording. If you're interested in the tripod, it's an awesome tripod. It does quite a few different angles and different things like that. I'll throw the link up for that in the YouTube video as well. I found it on Amazon. But just trying to get everything set up so that I could record. I will say, you know, the lighting you're going to see here in this video, I noticed when I was editing, not this video, it'll be further along, I think. The lighting, the camera has to autofocus, and you know, this entire process was filmed all day through Sunday and into Monday, because I had to wait for things to dry. I had to do, you know, different things as I went along. So here you're seeing me unmask it. And back to the lighting part, you'll see in some of the later video, the lighting does change just a little bit because some of it was filmed after dark and the inside light wasn't as well, so the camera was having problems focusing. But I am just taking that mask off, and you can see some of those pieces are very, very thin. So I was being very, very careful, even though at 4 times the speed, it doesn't look like that. But I had to be very careful in removing that and making sure that I didn't break off any of those little pieces. I was successful, which isn't generally what happens when you're on camera. Usually you make a mistake or 10. I only think I had one tiny little piece that broke off of one of the designs when I was unmasking the whole thing, which to me is a success, and I didn't need to cut it over. So you can see that's the full design, and then I'm unmasking that second design. And again, keep in mind this is recorded at a time lapse of 4 times the speed, so I am really not working this fast. I am taking my time, I am going slower, and punching out all those little pieces that didn't just automatically fall out from the Glowforge when it was cut. And then I'll wipe those off into the trash. You could also cut this out of many materials. You could cut it out of cardstock with your Silhouette machine. You know, I just have had this Glowforge for a couple weeks now, and I keep thinking of interesting projects that I could do. A lot of it is, hey, let's try this and see if it works. That's really, to be honest, that's what a lot of projects that I create with Silhouette, or a lot of the classes. I have 22 classes available on my Teachable site. You can find more information on my SilhouetteSecrets.com website, but a lot of times that's really how a class starts, is let's see what happens. And especially, you know, there's classes that I have a curio heart mandala shape that I have filled with different etch settings, and it's etched out of acrylic. That was a total accident. It was just, let's see what happens when I fill this and how does it turn out. And then it developed into a full-blown class that I was able to teach at All Things Silhouette conference a couple years ago, and it's also available now on my Teachable site. So, you know, the biggest thing I can say is to play. Get your machines out. Whatever machines that you have, get them out, get them working, play with them. You're going to learn from mistakes. I learn a lot of things from making a mistake. When you're working with Silhouette, if you forget to load your mat, it's not going to cut. It happens to all of us, no matter our experience level. It happens even though I'm an instructor and I've been teaching for over 5 years now. It happens to everyone, especially if you're rushing and you're in a hurry. The same thing will happen if I was to speed through this and try to pull the transfer tape off of it too fast. It's probably going to break out those points. So go slow, learn as you go. The next time you do it, you're going to, what I find is that you remember things a little bit more after you've made a mistake. So are you going to make that same mistake again? Yeah, probably. I've sent designs to my Silhouette machine multiple times without having the mat loaded or even having a blade loaded. And then you wonder why it didn't cut. So things happen to us all. This is another reason that being on camera doing a project is a little bit more difficult, especially when you're doing that overhead shot. You know, my head gets in the way because these are some small pieces, and I really wanted to get in there and remove those with the tool. My eyesight's not what it used to be, and so trying to do that without getting my head inside the camera. But you can see in the picture-in-picture, I had a little friend visit me, give him a pat on the head. I tried to line up the full picture with what I was doing with the project so you could see it in the same amount of time. Now I do a little dance. You know, right now my theme song, I would have to say, is AA by Walker Hayes. My kids were in the background, which is not what you see there, but they were dancing in the background. And then once it's cut, I had to start the finish work. So this is in our garage. This is my husband's workshop, his wood shop. And another reason why we're starting the Swift Creek Customs is that he can also share in the creation of things that we can share with others to inspire them. And so I'm just coating this with black spray paint. And what you're going to see down the road in this video is that I didn't really care for the look of the black spray paint. It didn't sit well. So it was a good thing to kind of prime it with. And you'll see here in a little bit that I actually covered it with some acrylic paint to give it a little bit different look. But it was a good way to give it a base coat. And I am being very intentional in how I spray this. I have the garage door open and I'm using safety equipment. But my husband was also working on a project, a custom build project for our entertainment center, and I didn't want the spray to go in that direction. So I'm being very intentional in the direction I'm spraying it at. And it was a very cold day outside, so I could only have the garage door open a little bit without freezing myself out. And then now here's where the lighting changes a little bit. So I have, you can see the camera's trying to focus. So when you're just shooting it in a time lapse, you experience some different things. So I do apologize for that. And if it bothers you, you can speed this up even more to skip this part. But really all I'm doing, this is the only section in here, painting this white part here, where it really gets to be a little bit of a concern. But it goes, so I'm sanding off the screen, so I'm sanding over top of my trash can just to get a little bit smoother surface, and it worked very, very well. I ended up going back and sanding the first board that I painted, because I did not do that the first time. And when you're doing this recording, if you've ever done any of it, your camera auto-focuses when you move in front of it. So you're seeing some of that too, along with that lighting changes. Again, videography is not my specialty. I am back. Now, keep in mind that in between all of this is the dry time. So I had to let everything dry, go out and check it, and take pictures along the way. That's what you're seeing me do. And then I am grabbing my respirator, putting it back on, and I'm going to coat everything. I think I threw a couple more projects on there that I needed to coat with a clear shellac so I can kind of seal it off. It was supposed to give it a shiny look. Again, you'll see here in just a little bit, I didn't really care for the look of the black, so I redid it afterwards. But I had a few more pieces that I put on there of different projects. Oftentimes I will have, as you will be able to see on my workspace when it changes back over here to my studio, there's just a photo of me in the Word shop. You'll see my husband's custom work in the back. You'll see I have many projects just laid out here on my workspace. This is me. This is how I work. You know, while one project is waiting to dry, I'll be moving on to the next project. Sometimes projects sit there for a couple weeks. Some of that, I did not clear my space off when I went to shoot this video. I didn't even think about it. I was, you know, in the creative zone. I was trying to create a project for me that I had in my head. I wanted to get it out. So I'm off camera right now, I'm sanding again. I didn't like that look, so I decided to sand the black. And then my whiteboards needed more. It just wasn't a good coverage. So sometimes it takes several coats of paint. I've learned things along the way of, you know, using different materials with the Glowforge just in the short time that I've been doing it. And so painting is maybe not always the method I'll use, but it's what I used in this video. I also painted those little gnomes that you see, those Easter gnomes with the little eggs. I cut each piece out of the Glowforge and then I painted those all. Painting is not my favorite, but I'm learning or trying to tell myself to learn to enjoy it. So that is just one of those aspects for me. Again, I was off camera doing the sanding. I don't like to sand on my workspace because then it gets dirty. So I just do it over the trash can, and it's a very light sanding, so it's not necessary that I need to take it to the wood shop. Some of the other projects you'll see there, I have some leather that I've laser cut on the Glowforge that I was testing for. I even tried my hand on the right hand side. You'll see I tried, it's really hard to see in the photo, but I did some tooling on that as well by hand. Another thing I'm learning. So between all my hobbies and all the different things I do, it can vary week by week or day by day on what I am working on. But you'll see quite a few things there in progress. I have some earrings in the top left that I cut out of leather. And then I just cleared a space to be able to get this idea out of my head and onto a physical product. And here I'm repainting that with some black acrylic paint because I did not like the surface, and I do apologize that it's a little bit out of the frame. I will come back in here in the frame in just a second, but I wasn't going to re-record and do the whole project over just because of that. So give it a good coverage there, and then we have to let it dry again. And I am not a patient person when it comes to projects, so letting paint dry or glue dry is not my specialty. But I did. So over the course of 2 days, this entire project was finished, glued together, and ready to be done. And then it takes a lot longer to edit the video, and I'll be honest, you know, trying to get started into these big, larger videos or content for YouTube and having to get the videos where you can access them. And what I mean is like taking it from your phone and getting it to Google Drive or downloading. Our internet has been very, very poor lately, and so that took some time as well. So every project, no matter what you're doing, it's going to take time. This is a third coat of white paint onto those boards. I just felt it needed some additional help there, and it just wasn't showing. So now I am ready, and I can glue the frames after it's all dried. Keep in mind, dry time is not in this video. So I did let all the paint thoroughly dry, and then I glued it together. Multiple products out there for glue. This one is Aleene's Tacky. It's a fast dry. It seems to be working really well. I asked, my husband's a woodworker. He uses all kinds of products, and he, you know, one of his was craft glue that he said would work. Now these aren't going to be, you know, I'm not selling, I'm not giving it to anybody. So if it comes apart here in a year or so, I'll be able to change my method. But it's working for now. It's working really well. I haven't had any issues. Once they were dry, I was able to then paint the edges of the boards so it was all a solid black. And then, of course, I have to let it dry again. So the video is it really is a step-by-step, but there is a lot of steps, a lot of things that goes into it. And I really wish I could paint that fast, or that the whole project went as fast as the 30-minute video here, but it really is just a matter of being patient. If you rush too fast, then it doesn't turn out. You end up starting over. So I'm learning as I go along, and it works for no matter what you're doing, whether you're working with the Glowforge, whether you're working with the Silhouette machine. None of it is magic out of the box, and it does take time to learn, just like any new skill, such as riding a bike or learning to drive a car. It all takes practice. And like I said before, a lot of mine is let's just try it and see how it works. Sometimes they turn out and sometimes they don't. And I had to let 3 sides dry so that I could come back and then do the final side on each of those boards for the edges. And I cannot even tell you how many times I walked to my sink in order to wash those paintbrushes out. setting up the project before I give it the final glue touches and seeing how it'll look. And then I just took, in the future, I'm going to test out some 3M adhesive that is already applied to your projects, and it would probably work a lot better on this project. You apply the 3M adhesive sheets to the backside before you even cut with the Glowforge. In this case, this is what I had on hand, so this is what I used. And I just made sure that a large majority of the design was covered, had some glue on it, some adhesive, and then I made sure to press the entire thing down to the backing board. It's just glue, so I used my finger to help get that into the smaller areas, and then I just wiped it off on a wet paper towel. So there is the first picture, and it's all glued together, and then I just let it dry for an adequate amount of time to make sure it was all dry. And then I moved on to the second one, doing the same thing. In the larger areas, I would use the glue bottle, and then I just used my finger to apply it into the areas that were smaller. And you don't need a lot of glue. It's kind of like a kid with a glue stick. It drives me nuts when my kids are using the glue sticks and there's glue everywhere. You really don't need a lot of adhesive. It just needs an adequate amount, just not an overabundance, because when you press that down, then you're going to get the glue that seeps out under. And while this glue is clear when it dries, you would still be able to see that in some areas if you have too much. There is the step-by-step process of how I created those two designs up there. It was just an idea that I woke up thinking, let's try this. And I went from there. And then I turned the cameras on to record it. Now, again, it is at 4 times the speed, so it's a time lapse. And I also have probably 30 to 40 minutes design time before it starts recording while my camera was charging. So there's a little bit more time, but over the course of 2 days, I was able to film and record this, and all projects just take time. If you have stuck with me through this entire video, thank you. Thank you. Like the video, please. That always helps on YouTube and for algorithms. It just gives you a little bit of the behind the scenes that happens in my studio. I get a lot of people say that they would love to be in my head on my Facebook group when I'm answering questions and doing different things like that. And this might show you that you might not want to be in my head. It's just I'm just trying to create. When you get that creative energy, go with it. Try and create a project. Sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes it is a dud, and sometimes, it comes out better than you ever expected. So I want to wish you the best of luck with your projects. If you have questions, find me on Silhouette Secrets with Ellie Mae on Facebook. I also have 22 silhouette classes available on my Silhouette Secrets teachable site. You can find those classes in the list on my website at SilhouetteSecrets.com. I hope you have a great day, and I would love to see your projects. Thank you.